Hey, what's going on, guys? I'm Nick Gray from Phandroid, and this here is the all-new Samsung Galaxy Note 20 Ultra. Now, the name is definitely a mouthful, but that's for good reason. This is probably one of the most feature-packed smartphones that's ever been released. There's this massive camera bump on the back, a pen on the inside, definitely a lot to go over here, but our full review isn't coming until sometime next week. But before we get to that, I wanted to highlight some of the biggest issues with the Samsung Galaxy Note and a couple reasons why you may not want to buy this phone. But this isn't a complete bash on the Samsung Galaxy Note 20 Ultra. It's simply to give you some insight into the device before spending your hard-earned cash on a $1,300 smartphone. That's right, $1,300 when compared to the new Pixel 4a, a $350 smartphone. It's hard to imagine why someone would really want to buy a device that costs $950 more. But before we get into that, let's just go over some of the main features. You get a 6.9-inch Quad HD Plus display on this device. That's absolutely gorgeous. It's honestly one of the best displays that I've ever used on a phone, but we're going to touch on that just a little bit later. And then you get a 4,500 milliamp hour battery on the inside, and then there's this massive camera setup on the back that includes a 108 megapixel main sensor, 12 megapixel ultra wide camera with a 120 degree field of view, and then a 12 megapixel sensor paired with a periscope 5x telephoto lens, which can get in super close to your subject. As for the front-facing camera, you get a pretty standard 10 megapixel sensor up front, 4K video from the front-facing camera at 60 FPS, and 8K video at 24 FPS from the main cameras on the back, but you're probably going to want to be shooting at 4K 60 for the most part, or even 4K 30 if you want to get better light for low light situations. As far as the other specifications, you get 12 gigabytes of RAM, 128 gigabytes of storage, and then the new Snapdragon 865 Plus, which is just a little bit faster than the 865 that we saw on the Samsung Galaxy S20 Ultra and the S20 lineup earlier this year. Unfortunately, there is no headphone jack, but you do get a massive hole at the bottom. As mentioned, you get the pen with the S Pen, stereo speakers, one at the bottom, one on the front, and then this amazing bronze color with this really nice squared off industrial finish, which I really love. So much so that you can technically stand it up if my desk is fully flat. Do it for me. Stand it up on its own. I've done it a couple times already. It's really fun to do. Don't recommend it if you want to make sure that the glass on the front and the back of the phone don't crack, so don't do that. But yeah, it's overall a feature-packed phone. But again, as I mentioned, there are a couple issues which I'm going to get into right now. For a smartphone that comes with a 108 megapixel sensor and a 5x periscope telephoto lens, you wouldn't think that the camera wouldn't be my #1 complaint with the Galaxy Note 20 Ultra. While the specifications of these two things sound really impressive, the real world results aren't really that great. Honestly, I've been taking it out and comparing it with the $350 Pixel 4a, which only has a 12.2 megapixel single sensor on the back of this phone. And honestly, in a lot of situations, the Pixel 4a can take better images when compared to the Galaxy Note 20 Ultra with its 108 megapixel sensor. The reason for this is because the pixels in that sensor are so small, and especially in low light conditions, having a smaller pixel means that you're not capturing as much light. So 108 megapixels sounds good on paper, isn't really that good in real world scenarios. Now the same can be said for the 5x periscope telephoto lens that's with that second 12 megapixel sensor on the back of the phone. You can see it's a little bit different shape at the very bottom. Now, while you can get in really close to your subject at 5x, the trade-offs here really aren't that great. Having 5x versus 3x that you get on the standard Galaxy S20 devices is honestly not that much more impressive. Yes, you can get in a little bit closer if you're trying to get really close to a subject, but the end results from those images really aren't that much sharper or allow you to see that much more detail in the images themselves. And then again, 8K video capture. This is definitely just trying to future-proof the devices because you can already purchase 8K TVs as of right now, but it's going to be a while until anyone can really appreciate that. I mean, dropping a file, an 8K video file, onto a regular PC or even the laptop that you have, most likely you can barely watch it back at 24 frames per second. So it's going to be a while until our computing systems are powerful enough to even watch those back. The second complaint that I have with the Galaxy Note 20 Ultra, again, that name is super long, is the overall size of this phone. I mean, this thing is a beast. For comparison, this is the Samsung Galaxy Note 10 from last year. And the reason I purchased the Note 10 rather than the Note 10 Plus was because of its size. I was really loving the fact that you could get a Note smartphone that wasn't massive. And going from this size to this size is unbelievable. And the difference here is you can still buy a slightly smaller Galaxy Note 20 this year, but the difference in performance between the two is substantial, as far as the differences in their cameras as well. So you're getting a lesser device if you buy the Galaxy Note 20 versus the Note 20 Ultra, which really wasn't the case last year when you went with the Note 10 or the 10 Plus. I really think this is a step back in terms of usability as well. Simply holding a phone this big, especially something that you're supposed to be holding, because if you put this on a table, trying to type or write a note, that camera bump just gets in the way. You're gonna have to put a case on this phone, and definitely a case is gonna make it much bigger than it already is. Now, one of the most obvious complaints for the Galaxy Note 20 Ultra, at least for me, comes down to the price at $1,300 for the base model. And if you want to go to 512 gigabytes of storage, the upgrade from the 120 that's in this phone here, that'll cost you another $150. Now, charging that much for a smartphone may not sound that bad, since we've been seeing price increases quite a bit over the last couple of years. But this is the biggest price increase that we've seen from the Note line for a very long time. But you might say, we have the $1,000 Galaxy Note 20. But when compared to last year's Note 10, it's really not that much of an upgrade. Yeah, you get some new S Pen features, but you don't get the high refresh rate that you get in the Ultra, and also that camera on the back, the bigger battery, and so on and so on. So if you're really not looking to spend that much money on a smartphone, the Galaxy Note Ultra is definitely not a device that's going to be fitting your budget this year. And this brings me to my final two complaints with the Samsung Galaxy Note 20 Ultra. And honestly, these complaints apply to most other Samsung devices as well, and both of these have to do with the software experience. Now, One UI and the overall user experience that you get on Samsung phones is a lot better than what we used to have with previous iterations of TouchWiz. It's honestly a breath of fresh air. It's still nowhere close to stock Android or with the usability and the experience that you get on a Google Pixel device, but it's still a lot better than what we got from Samsung in the past. My issue though is that there are simply too many features built into the software. Honestly, when we put together tips and tricks articles for the Samsung Galaxy devices, we run into 50 to 60 different tips and tricks, and that's not even covering everything that's buried deep within the software. And one of the issues with that is Samsung really doesn't have a way to expose or show users how to use any of these features when they set up the device. You get to your home screen, it shows you a couple things when you pull out the S Pen, and that's basically it. But if you actually dig into it, there are so many features here that 99% of the time never get used. And my second complaint with Samsung software is the fact that they have slowly been adding ads into as many Samsung applications that are installed on this phone as possible. It's not enough that they already pre-install 10 to 15 applications on the phone and get paid for every single one of those apps that is pre-installed on the phone. But Samsung's gone to adding ads inside of Bixby, pushing notifications to you with ads, and even putting ads within the dialer so that when you open up the dialer and you're looking for information inside of there, you're getting pushed different promotions as well. As mentioned already, Samsung is charging us a whole lot of money for the Galaxy Note 20 Ultra, $1,300 for the base model, making it one of the most expensive smartphones on the market. Now, for that kind of money, I wouldn't want to see ads every time that I open up applications, especially considering you never really get that from competing manufacturers. So, let me know what you think of my top complaints about the Samsung Galaxy Note 20 Ultra and if they are enough to keep you away from buying this smartphone. As I mentioned at the very beginning, my full review of the Galaxy Note 20 Ultra is coming up within the next couple days, so make sure you subscribe to the channel and hit that bell icon as well if you want a notification as soon as it's online. I'm going to be doing smartphone camera comparisons between the Note 20 Ultra and the Pixel 4a. I've already got the pictures for those, but you'll be able to see those coming up, and also the new Sony Xperia 1 Mark II. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed it, please give it a thumbs up, and I'll catch you in the next one.